Hey everybody, Razor Mouth here again. I just want to highlight some interesting information. I had a couple of you write me, not a lot, a few of you write me saying, "Hey, don't be so hard on the Republicans. They're on our side." Well, I'm always willing to be corrected when I'm wrong. I think that some of you are misunderstanding the point. I'm not saying that Republicans in general are the bad guys or that we can't count on them. In fact, as I will demonstrate in this quick little video, we can on many of them. My reference is more to the establishment Republicans, and when I'm referring to the establishment Republicans, I'm speaking entirely and mostly of Republicans in D.C. That's in the lower and upper house, the Congress and the Senate, and of course, not all of them are individuals that don't deserve our respect. In fact, there's a bunch of them that have come out now clearly swinging. I think of Senator Ted Cruz, for example. You could even say Lindsey Graham, who has encouraged the president to stand tall and continue to fight the good fight and take the whole battle of fraud and election rigging and irregularities to the courts. So kudos to them. Even the turtle, Mitch McConnell, has come out now and he seems to indicate some willingness to not move forward until all the legitimate legal votes have been counted. And then you've got people in the lower house, in the Congress, that also have come forward. So that's great, but there still are far too many Republicans sitting on the sidelines, waiting with bated breath to find out which way the wind will blow. Because at the end of the day, they're only concerned about one thing, and that's retaining political power. Nothing makes this more stark and more clear than the distinguishing difference between the senator, the Republican senator from PA, one of the very states in which the battle is raging right now in the courts, Pennsylvania, and the senator from that state, Pat Toomey. As we juxtapose Pat Toomey with the Republican attorneys generals from a variety of states outside of PA who are in fact launching a lawsuit against the PA Supreme Court. So I just want you to watch this. The first, of course, is an interview with Senator Pat Toomey, and he was on NBC. And he was asked the question, do you think there's anything nefarious taking place with the prolonged vote count in the state of Pennsylvania? And this is how he chooses to answer that question.
Is concerning that it's taking time to count those mail-in votes?
Certainly not that I'm aware of. We had a massive quantity of mail-in ballots, many multiples, maybe an order of magnitude more than we've ever had before. And election officials did a tremendous amount of work to be prepared to process this, but they weren't allowed to start until election day. And the process is somewhat labor intensive. So it is taking a long time. It's going to take the time that it takes. I saw the president's speech last night, and it was very hard to watch. The president's allegations of large-scale fraud and theft of the election are just not substantiated. I'm not aware.
Okay. So here's a classic case of hear no evil, see no evil. Not because it's not readily available to anybody who has the eyes to see and the ears to hear. It's because he chooses not to. I don't know why. I don't know what his political bent is in this. I don't know what he thinks he's gaining. I certainly don't think he's making any fans or winning any hearts and minds of most of the Republicans in Pennsylvania. But nevertheless, this is his position. It's the same position that Mitt Romney's taking. It's the same position that many Republican senators are taking, sitting on the sideline and not willing to get into the fray and being used, willing lackeys of the media to tout that line. The line being that they are ashamed of the president and his rhetoric for bringing up, for even having the audacity to question the legitimacy of what's been taking place since November the 3rd. Okay, so that's him, Pat Toomey. Thank you very much. Glad to know that you're on the right team. Then we juxtapose that individual to this group of individuals, and I just want to highlight them. The Republicans Attorney General Association, made up in this case of a bunch of Republican attorney generals from a variety of states who've decided now to launch a suit and a claim against the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania over the very thing that Toomey is denied. The fact that there is, in his opinion, no sign of fraud or irregularities that we should be concerned about.
Your name, your media outlet, and to which Attorney General your question is directed to, and we'll be able to take those at that time. Thank you very much. And without further ado, Attorney General Jeff Landry.
Good afternoon. My name is Attorney General Jeff Landry from the state of Louisiana, and I'm also the chairman of the Republican Attorney Generals Association. We have constantly reminded the American people that we represent and stand up for the rule of law. As such, we believe that the voting system should be free of outside undue influence and that irregularities in the process should be completely vetted so the American people can have faith in their system of electing officials. In this particular case, we believe it's akin to the referees getting to change the rules of the game midway through the football game. And being that we're in football season, I think every American can understand and appreciate that. And we believe that's exactly what the Pennsylvania Supreme Court did. The referees, which are the judges, don't get to write the rules. That's the legislature. And unfortunately here, we believe that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court did exactly that by rewriting the law. Once all legitimate votes are counted.
So what he's getting at, if you don't already know, is that the PA legislature, which right now is governed mostly by Republicans, had passed a law a while back allowing for mail-in voter ballots as a result of the COVID situation. So the Republicans allowed for it. But they stipulated very clearly, and the next Attorney General that is going to come up will make this clear, and they stipulated very clearly in that bill that they forwarded that there would be safeguards. And one of the safeguards is that no mail-in ballot would be acceptable after November the 3rd. And it had to be in by November the 3rd at 8 p.m., okay, to safeguard against any potential fraud and sudden dumping of mail-in ballots, which precisely is what happened on November 3rd. If you remember, and if you're watching, President Trump was up by about over 700,000 votes, and then they stopped counting in Philadelphia, and they made sure there were no poll watchers, and the very next morning, what do we discover? Suddenly, all of these ballots appear, and they get dumped into the count, and they start counting, and lo and behold, Biden suddenly magically advances forward in the count. Now, to a listening ear, to a seeing eye, that clearly is suspect, but obviously not to Pat Toomey.
And irregularities are corrected, then irrespective of who the president is, we will continue to ensure that the rule of law is protected. At this time, I would like to bring up Attorney General Eric Schmidt of Missouri, who led this particular brief. General.
Thank you, Jeff. Again, Attorney General Eric Schmidt, I want to thank everybody for being here. Free and fair elections are the cornerstone of our republic, and it's one of the reasons why the United States is the envy of the world. We have to ensure that every legal vote cast is counted and that every illegal vote cast is not counted. To do so would disenfranchise millions of Americans, and why we filed this brief today seeking the Supreme Court to take the Pennsylvania case and then reverse the Pennsylvania Supreme Court's decision. And there's a couple of key issues that we highlight in our brief. The first is a separation of powers issue. Under the election clauses of the United States Constitution, the power is specifically granted to state legislatures to direct time, place, and manner frameworks for their state's elections. That happened in Pennsylvania. And after a lot of deliberation and a lot of debate, the Pennsylvania General Assembly expanded mail-in voting options, but made very clear as an important safeguard that all ballots should be received on Election Day. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court rewrote that law. And so as the court overstepped their bounds and encroached on the legislature's authority. That's one of the issues we bring up.
Okay, so I just want to pause there quickly. So unfortunately, Republicans were caught off guard. I don't know what they were thinking. They should have realized this was happening. But the Democrats and Democratic operatives in the Biden campaign and in the DNC have been for at least a year now, have surreptitiously been, well, I guess not surreptitiously, it's there for anybody who really wanted to see it. We're engaging in lawsuits in all these various battleground states over the course of last year to change, to get the courts, which tend to be, at this point on the state level, strong Democrat strongholds, to get the judges, which are for the most part partisan hacks, to go along with circumventing the authority of the legislature, which had instituted safeguards for electioneering and an election day, and get the court to overrule the legislature's bills. And in doing so, they've been doing this for about a year now in all these battlegrounds because they were preparing for November 3rd. They knew exactly what they wanted to do. They knew they were going to use the mail-in ballot system as the ticket for being able to overwhelm the system with fraudulent votes. Now, of course, we have to prove that, get access to these votes and look at them, look at these ballots and look at whether they're for real or whether they've just been printed off with the same old signature. And I'm sure that will come forward. But knowing that was their plan, they also needed to have the courts overrule the state legislatures in these battleground states to allow for this to happen on November 3rd. They successfully accomplished that in many cases. PA was one of them. They're doing that in Georgia. They did that in Michigan and Wisconsin. And created an environment in which they could surreptitiously, under the cover of night, when everyone's not looking and no poll watchers around, suddenly bring in hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of mail-in ballots to swamp the system and all votes in favor of Biden. That is fraud. And that's why what Toomey is saying is so irrational and outrageous. He is deliberately choosing to look the other way. And this is why we're in trouble. And for all of you Republicans in PA, I think you would do well to flood Pat Toomey's office with phone calls and call him out for being a coward and for being a willing accomplice by turning a blind eye. And how dare he call out the president for basically bringing this to the light of day? How dare he do that? He should be ashamed of himself. And frankly, you voters in PA, you should think twice about ever supporting a guy like Pat Toomey ever again.
How did they do that? Well, they created an overtime. They extended the period of time in which those ballots can be received. In fact, they said if they're postmarked on election day, or even if they're not postmarked at all, if they're received several days after the election, they can be counted. We believe that this is a violation of a very important principle of federalism and our separation of powers, that they overstep their bounds. The second is election integrity in its broadest.
All right, I'm going to end it there, friends. I'm going to leave the link for you to watch the entirety of this press conference from the Republican Attorney General Association and their litigation against the PA Supreme Court, bringing this to the Supreme Court of the United States to overturn that. And this is the stepping stone for many other lawsuits right across the country to put to rest this whole thing of voter irregularity. So those of you who are Biden sycophants, you go ahead and celebrate all you want. This is far from over. Keep the faith, everybody.